So as you can see in this clip, Liu Kang, the guy in yellow pants, is performing a martial arts move called a bicycle kick. This kick has you jump forward in the air and swing your legs at your enemies like you're rotating bicycle pellets. You can see Liu Kang has leaped forward onto Shao Kahn and is rapidly kicking his chest for a small amount of time. Meanwhile, Shao Kahn is continuously moving backwards. Although this may look cool and stylish, there is no magic or superpowers in this clip. It's a regular monk fighting. With this, we can move forward and analyzing what is wrong with this clip, as you can see on the screen right now. So there are two main physical elements that are being broken in this clip. The first one being forces, and the other being two parts of kinematics. I'll start with the forces since it's most obvious. The first most obvious force that has been broken in here is gravity. You're easily able to notice this by observing how Liu Kang is able to stay attached to Shao Kahn during the entire duration of the kick. For the entire time he's doing the kick, he stays in the complete straight line without even showing any signs of decreasing or descending. There's no amount of upper body strength that can make someone resist gravity from pulling them down, so this is physically impossible. Next is the applied force Liu Kang is giving Shao Kahn. Since Liu Kang is directly applying force to Shao Kahn with his feet, Shao Kahn should be pushing back Liu Kang. Now, if Shao Kahn was pushing back with the applied force that Liu Kang was giving him, this should have slowed Liu Kang down while he was kicking him, since he would be pushing back at Liu Kang. Since we're on the topic of applied force, something smaller than the other two problems with forces at the end is with the forces at the end of the kick. When Liu Kang is done kicking Shao Kahn, instead of having some form of knockback from rapid kicks, he just drops down. What should at least happen is that Liu Kang should at least move back a bit after finishing his kicks. Moving forward from forces, kinematics is the next physics topic in this clip that's broken. The first mistake I noticed with kinematics here is that Liu Kang is not built on the velocity or the fly that far in the air. All he does is simply launch off his back foot and continue to travel forward. If he wanted to travel farther while kicking, he would at least need to run up to his opponent in order to carry that velocity in the air in order to travel further than he would have if he just jumped from standing. So after he's in the air kicking his opponent, his velocity stays the same, but as I said before, he's supposed to slow down due to both of the applied forces. Since the applied force Liu Kang is pushed on Shao Kahn, this means that his velocity in the air while he's kicking in the air should slowly decrease, eventually becoming zero. Same trap is acceleration. Something else I can point out is how he travels in the air. I mentioned in the forces part how he goes to the straight line without anything affecting him. Well, in this scenario, I'm going to imagine his body as a projectile. So, taking into consideration his body is similar to projectiles since he's throwing himself at his opponent. Look, he would jump onto his opponent, then carry for a second while slowly descending to gravity. In a graph format, you would see him go up, reach his peak, then go down, making a hill. So now it's time to apply all the corrections that I previously said in my previous section into my clip. And luckily for me, I was actually able to find somebody online trying to replicate the same move in the exact same game. And I'll let the clip play right now. So as you can see, he starts out beginning a running start in order to increase his velocity, which then will allow him to get the correct distance and time in the air to do his kicks. You can also tell that gravity here is clearly affecting him since he's able to jump up, reach his peak, and slowly descend down. And also, you can tell the applied force is definitely hit him since he's able to slow down in the air, since the applied force is hitting back at him while he's kicking in the air. You can also mention that he keeps his momentum when he falls on the ground, but since that is not grade 11 physics, nobody cares. Now it's onto the math part. So for the first thing that I calculated for math was the kinematics. The very first thing I calculated for kinematics was the distance of the entire kick, so how far did he go. How I was able to do this is that I was able to grab one of the characters, or I grabbed Shao Kahn's height, and using a video editor, I've turned 90 degrees so he's flat, and then I followed them two while they were kicking the entire time, and I was able to get 7.04 meters, and they traveled that far in 2.5 seconds. So with that in mind, I was able to determine that they traveled 2.81 meters per second, which is technically their final velocity. Since their initial velocity is 0, this is more of Liu Kang's initial and final velocity, but Shao Kahn is moving at the same pace that he is during his final velocity, so I figured both their final velocities. And after figuring out their final initial velocity, I was able to calculate their acceleration, which came out to be 1.11 meters per second squared. Then next, as you can kind of see on the farther right side in all red, I want to calculate how much applied force the one is giving to another. So for Liu Kang, I was able to calculate with his weight that he was able to output 94.35 amount of force on Shao Kahn, while Shao Kahn was applying back 201.35 0.35 amount of force back at Liu Kang. And if I did a little less calculations, but this turned out to be 2.1 times more force than what Liu Kang was applying to him. So this should have really slowed him down. And then finally we have the graphs. So I made two separate graphs. I made one graph that showed how they look without the physics, and one graph if the physics actually applied. So as you can see, the distance for the first one, which is in all blue, that really happens. Liu Kang slightly goes up and then goes in a straight line, which means his velocity on the graph goes a little bit down and then a straight line, which then also means the acceleration is a straight line in the negative area and then a straight line just on the middle of the graph. And now on the graph with the physics, as you see, the distance, which is in red this time, actually is like a little hill, which means his velocity is basically just going straight down, and then for his acceleration it's just a straight line in negative area. And that was all the math. So to conclude, there is no possible Liu Kang should be able to physically perform the Vice Click due to the fact that gravity would put him down, and he would eventually slow down due to the applied force to push him back. Also due to the fact that he did not get enough velocity before jumping on Shao Kahn. Thank you for watching my presentation, or video in this case, and I hope you learned a little bit or something new about martial art kicks. Yeah.